This is a cold frame. It's basically a mini greenhouse that you can use to extend your growing season in the spring and fall. The previous owner of my property built this one, but I liked it so much that I built another one. I have basically no construction experience whatsoever, but it turns out you really don't need it. They're pretty simple to build. All you really need is a window, some wood, some screws, and some hinges. That barn in the background is 100 years old and is full of random stuff from anybody who's ever lived here. So I was able to get screws and hinges for free, and the window was free from Facebook Marketplace. Because I got everything else for free, I decided to pay a little bit extra to get cedar wood as my lumber because it is naturally pest and rot resistant. However, it is definitely not necessary to use cedar wood. You could easily use fir or pine and save a little more money. From there, you're pretty much just building a triangular box, and the dimensions are going to depend entirely on the dimensions of your window. Once you know the height that you want it to be, as well as the length of your window, you're going to have to use the Pythagorean theorem to determine the length of the bottom board. So don't ever say that high school math is useless. Now, the previous owner was more of a builder than he was a gardener, so there are actually a couple of flaws in this design, and I think I improved upon them in my version. This window is enormous and insanely heavy. I've had to replace some of the boards because they were rotting out, and it's difficult to maintain temperature inside of this cold frame on cool days, partially because it is such a large space, and partially because it has less insulatory value because it was constructed with 1-inch thick boards. So for my attempt, I used a much smaller window. I used cedar wood for its naturally rot-resistant qualities, and I used 2x4s with the hopes that the additional thickness will help it retain some heat on cooler days. I also had some extra weather stripping, so I used that to seal a little bit of a gap that I had in the back of the cold frame. This is not strictly necessary, and it's definitely not necessary if you know what you're doing and don't install a gap in there in the first place. In the fall, I had tons of salads from the cold frame, so I'm really looking forward to getting back to that. Today I planted 2 types of lettuce and arugula, as well as some cabbage here in the 2 cold frames. And I actually didn't get 1 window off of Facebook Marketplace. I actually got 24 windows off of Facebook Marketplace. So I guess I have 23 more cold frames to build, and I'm assuming each one will be a little bit better constructed than the last.